go ahead and kick this off. Good afternoon, everyone. Bienvenidos. And thank you for joining us today for this exciting announcement. I just want to thank the Stockton Schools Initiative and Stockton Scholars for allowing us to use their education hub here in South Stockton in District 6, my district, which I'm always very proud to say. But I have some very important people behind me who have been working very diligently on what we're about to share today. So I won't be the one that's going to be delivering the news, so I won't ruin it. But we have a great lineup, and I'm going to go ahead and kick it off to I'm speaking already ahead with SUSD Board Trustee President Lang Lentau.
Thank you, Councilman Andrade. Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thanks. I'm really awake. Great. First off, I just want to say welcome to the South Stockton Education Hub. This is the home, as Councilmember Andrade mentioned, of the Stockton Scholars, an organization that I have the great honor of helping to run, and also the Stockton Schools Initiative. And this is our home, so we hope it's also your home. My name's Lang Lentau, and as you heard, I have two roles. Apart from helping to lead Stockton Scholars, I'm also the president of the Stockton Unified School District Board of Trustees. I know we have a lot of Stockton Unified graduates standing behind me. Props to the Stockton Unified students, and I think that there are some at the back that still need to make their way up to the front. But today, you are going to hear some major news coming out of the governor's budget around education. Stockton, as we all know, is a community that is changing for the better. Here at the Ed Hub, where we are now, we work every day to help create a college-going culture across our city. We host events like our financial aid workshops, like our college application personal statement days, and then, importantly, we help to register students for the Stockton Scholars Grant, which, as we know, is a grant that is open to any graduate of a Stockton Unified School. And this year, we'll be providing a guaranteed scholarship to any kid that graduates from a Stockton Unified School and goes on to higher education. And by that I mean a 4-year, 2-year, or trade school. Mayor Tubbs, the man standing behind me, has been a key leader in that work towards education, along with Assemblymember Susan Talamantes Eggman, also behind me, and Councilmember Andrade, who will be introduced in a second. I do want to speak really briefly before we get to the announcement about what this means for the other organization that I represent, Stockton Unified School District. And I just want to remind us that along with the work that's going on with Stockton Scholars, Stockton Unified is committed to making sure that more of our kids are graduating prepared to go on to college. Just this week, Stockton Unified moved forward on a college, career, and community-ready graduation standard for all of our students. This would set the UC and CSU A through G courses as the default grad requirement for all of our students, starting with the students who are currently in 8th grade. And I think that that is a beautiful thing to think about. How can we prepare for Stockton to be a city so that our students who are in school right now can graduate ready to go on to college and hopefully, knock on wood, can stay in our community to learn and to work. So to share more, it's now my great honor to introduce someone who has been leading a lot of this work to set a new path forward for our community and truly to reinvent our community. Would you please join me in welcoming the mayor of our city and an inspiration to me, Mayor Michael Tubbs.
Well, first, thank you all. Thank you, Trustee Lentau. I think what he spoke about makes this announcement even more special, and that in Stockton, we're really serious about building pathways and opportunities for our kids after high school. And we want all our kids to graduate college and career ready, so I want to start by thanking the school district, Stockton Unified, their board, their superintendent, their staff for that bold A through G readiness resolution. Currently, only 30% of our kids graduate A through G ready across districts, including Stockton Unified. That resolution, making the graduation requirement, makes it much more likely in the next several years that number will be higher, like 60, 70%. I'm also excited to be here because last year we were all gathered for an exciting announcement. Last year with Trustee Lentau and the Assembly member and the councilman and others, we talked about the Stockton Scholars Program, a $20 million investment to signal to the state and to the country really that Stockton, again, is serious about providing opportunities and pathways for our children once they graduate high school. That we want our children to have skills and opportunity. You understand that a lot of that comes from having access to higher education and a good paying job. Now, I'll also say we're so thankful to have Assemblymember Eggman here because her leadership over the past decade on the issue of bringing a public institution to Stockton has really brought us to this point. We'll talk about the bills she's authored, the conversations she's had, and the public awareness she raised, even when I was a council member, about the possibility that if there was to be a new CSU built, that CSU should be built in Stockton. For the past several months, I've been on part of the governor since he's been sworn in transition team, and we've been continuing the conversation started by the assembly member around what will it take to kind of move the ball forward in creating a new CSU, a public institution in Stockton. And I'm happy to announce that today in the governor's budget, he included a $2 million allocation to begin that planning process. And to make sure I get it right, because I see Roger has his pen, I'm going to read exactly what it says in the budget. It says, the budget proposes $2 million in one-time general fund for the Chancellor's Office to undertake a review of a potential CSU campus in San Joaquin County, likely in Stockton. It's a huge deal. It's not the end-all, be-all, but it's a huge deal because it signals intent. And again, it's about the effort put in for many years by our assembly member and our community to really show that Stockton, again, is part of California. It's an important part of California. So I also want to take a moment to thank the governor and his team for making good on his campaign promise. Many of you were there when he mentioned that if he was governor, if there was a new institution of higher learning to be built in the state, it would be in Stockton, California. And again, over the past couple of months, working on the transition team, he's delivered on that promise. So now moving forward, starting this year, we'll have $2 million to help plan for and figure out what will the CSU in Stockton look like, which is a huge first step and something that the whole community should be proud of. It goes back to the adage we always say that we're not where we need to be as a city, but with 40% decline in homicides, with the businesses coming in, with this new announcement, it goes to show that Stockton is on the rise and we are getting better. So with that, I would like to introduce our assembly member, again, Susan Eggman, who's done this work for many years to bring us to this point where we can then have this announcement. So assembly member Susan Talamantes Eggman.
Thank you. And thank you to the great leadership in the city of Stockton. It is so when I first got on the council, I was in my 40s and thought that was young. When I look at now who is leading the city, I am so inspired by the evolution that we continue to experience in Stockton. When we first started talking about a CSU, it was a dream. But dreams are never realized unless we have them and we set that goal marker and we work towards it. And does it happen overnight? No. Do families transform overnight? No. It takes hard work and continuing to raise the flag and continuing to raise the issue. As Mayor Tudge pointed out, when I was in the council, we talked about this. I come from CSU. I'm a first-generation college graduate myself. I know how transformative a public education can be. And I know if you can't see it, you can't be it. And so we know that Stockton is one of the fastest-growing regions. San Joaquin County is one of the fastest-growing regions in the state of California. And we know that we are undereducated. We know that we have a lower percentage of people graduated from high school. That's changing. And we know we have a fewer amount of people who are college educated. And the jobs that come with that and industry that comes with that are all connected. So how do you change that picture? You get us a 4-year public university. In the city of Stockton, the state has given us about 4 prisons. And we know that we have an established pathway to prison. That's what we want to change. Close a prison, open a university. We have turned the pathway of this city and this county around with hard work, with blood, sweat, and tears, and sacrifices by a lot of people to be able to get to this place where we are the phoenix who's rising. And when we got to that place, you saw the rest of the state begin to pay attention. The rest of the state began to pay attention. We kept saying, we need equity. All the goodness can't be in global coastal California. It's got to be in the spine where the people live, where we grow the crops, where the trucks take the freight up and down. It's got to be all of California for us truly to be golden. And I am so heartened that this governor has embraced that. I'm so heartened of the young leadership that stepped up and put blocks in place to make this happen. The Scholars Program, all the things that Mayor Tubbs is doing that has put Stockton on the map in a good way. It has taken a long time, but today, it is one more step towards our realization of having a 4-year public university here. It's not over. We're going to continue to have to keep fighting, but it's closer. And hopefully, the people of this community will see that, and everyone really begin to rally behind this. So anyway, it is my pleasure to be here. I've had a couple bills, bond measures. I have another bond measure this year to be able to say, $7 billion. We can have a bunch for deferred maintenance, but let's have some for new campus development too. We're continuing to forward that. The CSU has not been as happy about that because they would just like all the money for deferred maintenance, but the governor also gave them an extra $300 million. So I'm hoping that will make them happy enough that we're going to be able to partner together as we go forward. Because the CSU's job is to educate the next population of who people are going to be living and working and dreaming and making California great. So then that investment needs to be right here. So I thank you all for being here. It is indeed another step of the dream coming true. And so we can see it now. So let's do it. Thank you very much.
So just to summarize, number one, we're here primarily for the people behind us, our children, the next generation. As the Assemblywoman said, if you live anywhere in the United States and you live in Stockton compared to other cities, you live in the second largest metro area in this country without one institution of higher learning that's public, or the second largest in the state if you live in the Stockton metro area. So when we talk about the work the Assemblywoman has done with bonds, talk about the work I've done in the transition team with pushing the issue, it's really about the future. It's really about making sure our students who are just as smart, just as talented, just as resilient as any student anywhere in this country and state, have the opportunity to pursue higher education that's public in their community if they want to do so. And to that end, again, the governor has made his campaign promise that if there was to be a public institution open, it would be here in Stockton, and put it in his first budget, that $2 million to begin this planning process with the CSU Chancellor's Office to figure out what will it take to get a public institution of higher learning in Stockton. And I would say as a first-generation college student, as a former educator, that this is an exciting day for the city. It's a good day for the city. And I know myself, the assembly member, and the trustee are happy to answer any questions. But again, Stockton, it's good. The sky's not falling. It's good news continually. and momentum is building, and we'll continue to do everything we can to create the community that we all deserve. So with that, any questions for myself, or the assembly member, or the trustee?
So what exactly will this study look like? I mean, are you scouting locations? Are you talking to people? What's going on?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. So essentially, the $2 million is for the development of said study. So once the budget's approved, because let's still go through the legislative process, there'll be a conversation with us, the CSU Chancellor's Office, maybe the Lieutenant Governor, who's also supportive, the State Superintendent of Public Schools, who's also supportive, to figure out how's that money going to be allocated to really create a plan. So I would imagine stakeholder engagement. I would imagine scouting for potential locations. And the good part about it is that the city has already done a lot of that work. We already have University Park in downtown that has a CSU satellite campus. We zoned some land in the general plan if there was to be an expansion of a CSU. So if there needs to be an option with more land, we already have that zone. We have some land with the fairgrounds. So there's plenty of spaces we've already been scouting as a community if the CSU is to come to locate. And then we'll spend the next year really figuring out what's the process, what's the plan, but we're also going to need the community's help. That it's going to be an organizing effort. We need community members to call, not just our assembly member, but other assembly members. I know the Latino Chamber is doing an advocacy day to really talk to the rest of the state about how does it benefit them to have this public institution in Stockton.
What about the ripple effect? That is, jobs coming in as well as the amount of money that would be going into the city in terms of revenue.
Absolutely, it's a huge economic development driver. And I would argue economic development mandate. Like if you think of the future of work, if you think of where jobs are going, most of them will require some level of certification, some level of higher education. And our kids and our students in our community further and further behind, there's not an affordable, accessible place for them. And UOP is a great institution. I used to work there, taught there as well. But it doesn't have the capacity to absorb all the 40,000 kids who graduate who are students at Stockton Unified, or the 80,000 kids that are part of our school system totally. So, and in addition to that, a CSU would allow for professors and professionals and really help us leverage our existing assets in transportation and ag tech and agriculture to really, really grow the next generation of workforce.
And what about numbers? I mean, as far as preliminary numbers, I guess, floated out, I guess maybe a couple of years ago when I first thought about this.
How much would it actually cost, or what would it bring into the city? What would it bring in,
and also about how many employees or jobs would it create?
I don't have those exact numbers, but the one thing I will say to the other question that was asked also, like, what does this mean? When Governor Brown came into office, there was a dearth of money, right? There was the ground was falling apart, and he got rid of a department called CPEC, and that was the agency that decided where universities would go. It would plan for the next universities. So that was dissolved. So that's another thing that we've been working on, trying to get that back into existence. So what this governor has done basically, and I hope we still get that back into existence, but has gone kind of around that to direct the chancellor's office directly to be able to evaluate, because before that it was just up to them. I don't have the exact numbers on, we do have that report, but I will say to the other issue of, I think the average person right now who does not have a college degree, their average income is about $35,000 a year. Somebody with a four-year degree, it's about $85,000 a year.
Yep.
So when you think about the difference, the disparity of the people in Stockton and San Joaquin County who do not have a college degree, you can immediately see why we have a much higher rate of poverty than other places, because we have a less educated workforce and just less money into the economy.
How many students do you think at CSU?
I got the number for you really quick.
Oh, okay.
So, thank God for
Yeah.
staff. So,
Yeah.
about 2,500 direct construction jobs and 2,000 ongoing jobs.
I have a quick question. You two have been advocating for a campus here in Stockton for a number of years now. Is there any site that you would like to see a campus built? And are there any programs that you would like to see that campus include?
I think both of us are pretty agnostic on the site. As long as we get it, we'll find a place for it. And I think we can be incredibly creative. I think we're going into a whole new era, and so I think we can be creative of how we think about it. I would like to see like a Cal Poly Stockton. I think there are only two other Cal Poly, Caltech programs in the state of California. It makes sense for us to be a third one. We've got the port, we've got agriculture, our economy, I think, supports it. The Bay Area is priced themselves out, so more tech industry is going to be moving out this way. We already know that we're a leader in biotech industries, so those kinds of things I think would be fitting. I also think we need to think about retraining our workforces, and so I'd also like to visualize this kind of being as a hub for that, because there's no other place in this state, especially in agriculture, right? It's continuing to evolve and change and become mechanized, so how do we help the workforce then transition into something else? The Lieutenant Governor was talking about she talked to somebody in Stockton who had been waiting 2 years for a welding class at Delta, right? That's unacceptable. We need to be able to get people in quickly and out, and so I think my conception is sometime a Cal Poly Stockton, some kind of technology, and how do we really make it fit our economy, and how do we make it fit for a workforce transition?
And just to add to that, I would say that again, the biggest goal is to get the university here, and we can have a great discussion about where to put it. If it's multi-site, one site, I'm happy to have that discussion. But right now, the whole community needs to be unified about getting a campus here. In terms of the programs offered, to build on what the Assembly member mentioned, I think also it's a real opportunity because the world has changed so much since the last CSU was built. That's really think about what's the future of education and the future of work. So I'd love to see some programs again around kind of the green economy. Like, what does it mean that Stockton, California is leading the way in terms of climate change? So how do we make sure students are educated to be the scientists, but also to work in kind of the new kind of mechanical or manufacturing jobs that will be created because of the green economy and things of that sort. So I think it's a real opportunity, not just for Stockton, but for the state to be bold about what does education look like in post-2020? Like, where the world is going to look radically different than it looks today. So how do we train critical thinkers and leaders around a variety of sectors? And the Cal Poly concept makes a lot of sense.
I apologize, I got here late. How many students are you speaking of this campus will hold?
Well, that'll be part of the evaluation. I think most campuses would start with about 5 to 7, and so I think that's what the initial goal that we'd shoot for. But that will be decided as we go forward.
Would you like to see a larger campus like
Well, I think it depends on what's gonna fit the region, right? What's the capacity gonna be? How many people are gonna draw from other places? But I think 5,000 is a good number to start at.
The willingness of the new governor to propose this money, does that encourage you also in terms of the support that you're going to need for your bond measure that you've proposed for 2020?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk about that a little bit more? Just about?
Yeah, so we had I had a bond measure last year. and again, you know, politics are what they are, right? The CSU has 23 campuses, and they don't feel like they've had enough money. So the idea of, you know, mama wants to have another baby, everyone else is like, maybe my Christmas will get smaller. So they weren't as supportive. And so we, at the end, agreed to disagree and didn't go forward. We are right back at it this year, and I think the governor's message today made it pretty clear that we are serious about going forward, and I have much higher hopes. And if it's not in the bond, we'll find another way.
I'm just following back to your question, Rich, in terms of economic benefit. Because I remember a couple of years ago, the Senate member and myself brought before the Council an economic development study. And I don't have it in front of me, but it's a public record. But the number of economic benefit was $250 million. And I think we have some.
We have a copy of the report in the back.
And we have a copy of the report in the back, because again, staff is amazing.
Will you be available for one more interviews?
Absolutely.
Oh, and I know it's still early in the game, but as far as a partnership with Delta College, have they expressed interest or kind of talked about partnering up just to ensure that those students going through this program would have a straight through to transfer, things like that?
I think that work has already begun under Kathy Hart, and with the CSU satellite that we have now, they've already developed some agreements between if you graduate with AA, that you'll be able to match the curriculum going back into the CSU.
And I think what's exciting about this particularly is that it's very rare you find something that everyone can rally around. Mm-hmm. And even more so than providing free money for students to access higher education. This idea of a CSU Stockton has generated everyone. So people from the president of University of the Pacific, to the current chancellor of CSU Stanislaus, to Delta College, to all the superintendents, they all see the imperative of this. And I think if you go out to the community, from the young people here to folks throughout the city, the idea of a CSU coming to Stockton and more options for our students is one that the community is really excited about.
You know you're doing well as an elected official when that's the most common thing people yell at me from while they're driving by in their car.
What's the next step now? So we get the money, it's a study, or what's the next step?
Well, partly, I mean, the mayor will continue his advocacy, and then I will continue in the legislative process. I've already got meetings set up. I've already been in communication with the budget chairs and over the committees that will be ushering this through, because we still have to get it through the legislature. This is the governor's proposal, and then the two houses have to agree, and there's a lot of negotiation that goes on. So that'll be our work going forward, is to make sure that's in the actual May revised budget, and then we get to work on it.
Even if it was on the fast track, how many years do you think the CSU campus would be coming in Stockton? I guess how long would it take?
Well, I mean, the governor also talked today about some CEQA reforms. About if you can do a CEQA exemption to build a stadium, then you should be able to do it for houses and schools and other things like that. I will say, in listening to the governor's budget today, he is incredibly ambitious, and really has clearly been sitting in that lieutenant governor's office for 8 years, planning all the things that he wanted to get going. And so, I mean, I think reasonably 10. Perhaps, but if we can get going faster, maybe even sooner. But again, it never gets done unless we keep pushing and going forward.
Now, I'll just take a quick second, since we're talking about schools and college, just a quick government lesson. So I think it shows the importance of partnership, and that Assemblywoman Eggman is doing a lot of work in the legislative body, which is the body that actually has to approve this budget. And then from my vantage point as mayor, I've been working on the executive with the governor's team and figuring out how to get this on their mandate as well. But it takes both. Nothing this big, nothing of scale, nothing frankly that's really going to change Stockton for the better, because it's up to one person. It's generally partnerships between elected officials, community members. So for those of you guys watching, we need your guys' help to elevate this conversation. We need you talking to your friends and your family members who don't live in Stockton about the importance of having a CSU here in this community.
And we know, again, to the issue of partnership, that more education is better than less, right? There was some fear that, if we get a CSU Stockton, then it will hurt Delta. I was a professor at Sac State. There are 5 community colleges that feed into Sacramento State. More education is better than less. There's a need.
In looking at the verbiage included in this proposal, from my understanding, the $2 million would be allocated to the county with specific verbiage, likely Stockton. So, if this budget is approved and these funds are allocated, how confident would you be that this campus would be built in Stockton?
Well, the money is allocated to the chancellor's office to look at all of San Joaquin County, but likely in Stockton, because I think, to the governor's credit, you want to be, as we have a point of view as to where the conclusion will lead, but if conclusions lead otherwise, there's some flexibility for that. But I'm certain that the evidence, the numbers, the demographics, the political will, and the squeaky wheels will all be here in Stockton, so that likely in Stockton signals intent that the report will focus on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And the students are also available for one-on-ones.